Welcome back, everybody. You're listening to the Northern Miner Podcast, and I'm your host, Matthew Keevil. As always, we are brought to you by the Yukon Mining Alliance. Please surf by yukonminingalliance.ca and check out all the exciting exploration and development activity going on in the Yukon Territory. And you might have caught our little jingle off the top, so happy holidays. I am in studio with a fairly abhorrent Christmas sweater, which I am very proud of. So we're easing our way into the holidays here, but I do have a very good episode for everybody this week. Leslie's back in studio. We have a great Geology Corner, and I also have some comments from GMV Minerals President and CEO Ian Klassen on their Mexican Hat property in Arizona, and sort of the ongoing exploration work they're doing there in terms of expanding current resources, but also a potential new target, epithermal target that they've uncovered down there called Hernandez Hill. And we have a few comments from Ian coming up a bit later in the show. But before that, I thought we'd take a little bit of a walk through macro land and just glance at a few things that are upcoming in terms of macroeconomics that could impact our metal prices. Firstly and foremost, as we all know, the Federal Open Market Committee is meeting very soon, as of recording tomorrow, and everybody is expecting a rate hike, some tightening of the economic policy down there, and that has been fueled by very, very buoyant equity markets, pretty much globally. We've seen European equity markets up. We have seen U.S. equity futures trending higher. And treasuries have remained firm with U.S. 10-year yield at about 2.45%. And what all this basically equates to is it is setting the stage for this interest rate hike we've been talking about, it seems, for the bulk of the year. If people recall, at the onset of 2016 markets and sort of the Fed had hinted at it, that there may be as many as 3 U.S. interest rate hikes this year. But we saw tepid economic conditions. We've talked about that. We saw the mid-year rally in gold. But U.S. industrials have really bounced back, as has the Dow, since Donald Trump was unexpectedly elected president. And over the last, let's say 2 weeks, Trump's cabinet has sort of started to take shape. And let's just say that anyone who thought he was going to sort of maybe moderate his stances on climate change and extractives is probably pretty worried. So we saw Rick Perry named Energy Secretary. Texas governor has taken on the EPA numerous times. Let's call him a climate change skeptic. I don't like the D word. It's a little bit, I've heard it used in sort of crazy ways. Denier, right? Because you hear this all the time. Is if you're a denier, they'll come for you. Watch out. But anyway, so he's going to take it on. He's a big fan of sort of deconstructing the EPA, maybe less regulation, more approval. So we'll watch as mining companies that have projects in the states, maybe some states that had previously been viewed as sociopolitically risky due to permit concerns. We'll see if that changes, if some of these projects start to open up under a new regime. Leslie and I were actually talking about Northern Dynasty and the Pebble project in Alaska. They have been on a massive run since Rick Perry was named Energy Secretary. Then, meanwhile, we also saw Exxon CEO Rex Tillerson named Secretary of State. And despite the fact he has no real international diplomacy experience, he has negotiated, as Trump said, a lot of international deals. So we're seeing this sort of cabinet take shape that, Trump looks like he is who he said he was in the campaign in terms of environmental regulations and extractives. So it will be very interesting to watch how that impacts markets. But as we've seen, a lot of, as we mentioned, Northern Dynasty's been on a run. We've seen gold sort of hammered down by the rally in equities and the expected U.S. interest rate hike. So it will be interesting to see. But conversely, we've also mentioned, Mickey and I talked about it last week, the rise in copper, which was again at $2.60 pound at the time of recording. We saw oil. Oil has been up recently. We've seen West Texas Intermediate trading at well over $50 a barrel. I believe it was at $54 and around 15 cents when I walked into studio. So it's just an interesting dynamic going on internationally right now in terms of a degree of uncertainty with the U.S., which is it could go, Trump's hinting now at where it could go, and it's looking very interesting, especially in terms of Canada sort of going in the opposite direction, and we have a Trudeau government that did approve Kinder Morgan. We all know that with a billion conditions on it or whatever. It wasn't that many, but it was a lot, in the hundreds. But also now we're seeing a lot of protests in terms of Kinder Morgan in Line 3, which is another approval. But they did kibosh Northern Gateway. So it'll be interesting to see, and we did discuss this with Mickey last week too. Yukon and Alaska's right there, and now you're having this thing where the Obama administration really did align with what the Canadian Liberals are trying to do. This really does not at all. So it'll be very interesting to see what sort of response we get from the Trudeau Liberal government. They have been making all the correct overtures and saying, oh, they love to work with Trump. And I'm like, I'd love to be in that meeting because that's going to be a hilarious meeting. But anyways, so that sort of covers our macro. There's a lot of kind of fun stuff going on as we all enjoy our rum and eggnog and ugly sweaters. But now, let's get straight into the Geology Corner. We've all missed Leslie. She has been out of town and was briefly sick. She explains trying to get her cold out of the way before the holiday season. Yeah, let's launch into the Geology Corner. I'll be back on the other side, and we'll intro my interview with Ian Klassen, President and CEO of GMV Minerals. Here is your Geology Corner. Leslie's back.
I'm so back. It took me, I've been gone forever.
Tell everybody where you've been.
I don't even know anymore. I just kind of wake up and I'm just like, I don't even know where I am right now. But no, I just came back from McEwen Mining's projects in Mexico, El Gallo, and I went over to Gold Bar in Nevada.
Nice.
So, and then I've been sick for the past couple of days, probably like a lot of people
fatigue.
Out there. Yeah, well, I figure, I'm just going to get my cold out of the way before Christmas.
Yeah, so we've both been out of town. I was out of town for school, and then you were
gone
traveling.
Yeah.
But we are back in studio finally, and we can do a proper Geology Corner.
Yay!
So what do you have for us this week?
The Geology Corner, guys. So instead of calling it the Geology Corner this week, I would like to call it the Gratitude Corner.
The Gratitude Corner,
because that's kind of just who I am. Because I'm going to give everyone a million reasons why I am so madly in love with geological surveys.
Geological surveys, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm ready. I'm
cool.
ready. Yeah.
So over the past several months, I've been tracking through the geology of each province in Canada, step by step, and its relationship with the metal districts. And one of the biggest things I've learned through this whole process is just how critical Canadian geological surveys and the universities are to this industry. And it hits me particularly hard every time I pull out that beautiful geological map of Canada.
Yeah.
Right? Because for me,
colorful.
It's very colorful, it's beautiful, but it's an extraordinary feat, to illustrate 4.3 billion years of Earth's history into one single image, okay? We're talking about when you look at these maps, it's like a language, but it's coded in colors and pretty lines. So when you think of it, every single one of those polygons, that line work, that data point that you see on there is actually based on some sort of scientific fact or theory, taken from decades of hard work from both surveys and students alike. It's kind of, when you really think about it, it's kind of mind-blowing. So why is this important to us? Well, because if we didn't have these academic geology sleuths, our ability to discover, of course, as an industry would, I think, completely collapse.
That's, I mean, anytime you talk to Geoscience BC or anybody like that, I mean, they'll give you a list of projects that they helped sort of either discover or find extensions of, or I think one of the ones recently, what was it, they helped with Imperial, I don't know if it was Polly or Huckleberry, but one of the deposits Imperial was working on, I think some of the geological data from the province really helped them find more ore. So, yeah, and not to mention explorers who were having a hard time anyway, so... What's the saying? I hear it every year at Roundup. Gosh, somebody always says it. It's hard to find the needle in the haystack when you don't know where the haystack is.
Totally. Yeah, and speaking of sayings, there's another really good one that explains it. It's an old adage among gold geologists. And I don't know if you've ever heard this, but it says, if you want to understand where the gold came from, the last place you look is the gold deposit itself, right? So it's like the saying stresses like the importance of taking a regional broad look at mineralization and placing it in a much larger context. So in other words, you know, if explorers kept their heads in the hole, like literally, then there's a huge disconnect between what makes a valid exploration model and what kind of doesn't. So because deposits are becoming more buried and trickier to find, so now is the time we need to be as sharp and on our game as ever. So, I mean, how do we do that? Should we maybe adopt new technology and use proprietary geophysical techniques to probe deeper into the crust? And, you know, the usual spiel that we hear over and over again, and no doubt we'll hear it again at Roundup.
I'm a bit, depending on who's telling that story, sometimes I think those proprietary technologies are maybe more of a marketing mechanism than...
Potentially, because like deposits are getting harder to find, so we need more stuff. And it's like, well, no, maybe sometimes you just need to do simple structural measurements on your core. But for me, the one thing I've learned while doing this whole Geology 101 article for the Northern Miner, that the most important step that any of us can do, whether you be a junior explorer, whether you be just like an interested geologist or a concerned investor or confused investor trying to figure out whether or not you should invest in somebody, get this, it's really easy.
Yeah.
All you have to do is call the Geological Survey and talk to somebody.
And they'll wax poetic on the...
Dude, my mind has been blown just talking to the Geological Surveys. They're like all my best friends now, and they're super amazing, and like they really kind of have given me a whole new perspective. And perspective is, of course, the business of discovery, and the role that they have and that the universities have is to take our perspectives to the next level by growing our knowledge base of metal districts with respect to Canada's geology, right? So here I am as a geologist, I'm on the phone, I'm talking to these surveys, and I've learned that I absolutely knew nothing. Nothing about Canada's geology.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't have a clue. And I mean, first...
Well, you would work mostly in Australia and Southeast Asia.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I talk to my geology friends in Canada, and we all kind of like, we all have our own little pockets that we know heaps about, but in terms of how it all kind of comes together, is a different story. Like, I mean, case in point, okay, everyone is listening can judge me. I don't care. I really had no idea that the world-class Thompson Nickel Belt actually extends like northwestwards underneath the Hudson Bay and pops out at the Cape Smith Belt, like, you know, the Raglan Nickel Belt there. Which is cool because, you know, if we didn't have geologists doing those really boring sort of stratigraphic studies and stuff and all that analysis, then would we have known that those two districts are actually linked up?
Yeah.
So it kind of makes you think, oh, well, you know, where else could I look that has correlations between rock types that, you know, might belong to the same package? And then, of course, there are these, what I've learned from talking to the Manitoba Geological Survey, thanks guys, by the way, there's this thing called swinging greenstone belts.
I've never heard of that.
Okay, it's cool. Get this. I'm coining this term. Everyone who's listening, it's going to be called swinging Archean.
Okay.
Oh, it kind of rhymes. Swinging Archean. Anyway.
So there's a bit of cacophony in there.
Yeah. So, I mean, my mind was blown. So I always thought of greenstone belts, you know, these things host a lot of gold mineralization here in Canada as these linear volcanic chains, you know, sutured together, but they're not. If you look at the Philippines island chain, for example, it's a smattering of islands. And when they get to form, they can bend backwards upon themselves. So in Manitoba, they're saying that the world-class Flin Flon VMS camp trends into Saskatchewan, into the Glennie district, La Ronde, then takes a hard right and swings back into this gold district, Lynn Lake. At least that's the idea. Swinging Archean.
Swinging Archean.
Although that's not really Archean, it's kind of like Paleoproterozoic, but whatever. So this whole concept is pretty new to me. So then it just makes me think, why is it that I never heard of this when I'm speaking to people about Ontario or Quebec, where you have these greenstone belts? And why you have these major structures and how some of them have gold in it, some of them don't. Is that an artifact of exploration, or is that an artifact maybe of it swinging around back and forth and stuff like that?
Somebody doesn't know the direction of the structure necessarily. It might be going the exact opposite way.
Right? Like we don't really know. So and there's lots of studies kind of going on there. So, I mean, as explorers, what's the opportunity in knowing these large scale trends? And obviously to start, it gives us whole new places to look. And in fact, I was actually chatting with a couple of mates yesterday who just started a brand new company. It's private. It's called Kenorland.
Okay.
And they just picked up a huge package of ground in the Abitibi. And they were listening to the podcast I had about these greenstone belts
we talked
and these
about
structures.
yeah, the windfall thing, which
and
is
they
blowing
said
up
that
right now.
Yeah, right. And
Yeah.
so they said that they were listening to the podcast and they were cursing at me. They're like, "Shut up, Lesley! Shut up!" Because while they were listening to me, they were actually staking ground in these structures, right? That people don't actually look at, or just being able to take a new look at a belt. And that's what these guys are doing, is that they're approaching it from big picture sort of look. And
well, I think a lot of majors do that.
Because they have the data.
Yeah, and they have the money to fly a lot more district scale, airborne, and do a lot more just general. Like I think people would be surprised how much money some of them invest in just regional, not necessarily target specific exploration, but just understanding near mine potential and brownfield potential, and how they can essentially add more ore because they built these huge mills that are hungry.
But that's
hungry.
brown. But then again, of course, the argument there is that how many large companies have basically thrown out their exploration departments.
Yes.
Right? So the people who actually have the capability of doing these huge, large-scale regional studies are the ones that are actually tossing away their exploration people. So
I actually read an interesting. I think it was from CIBC or Scotia. One of the two recently had their own little investor mining conference, and they interviewed some of the major companies like Goldcorp, Lundin, First Quantum, and some of the big Canadian producers. And they said some interesting stuff. A lot of them said they're not really in the market to buy or acquire advanced stage assets anymore. And the model a lot of them are taking now is joint ventures with juniors.
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of that.
You're
It's
seeing
like
a lot
the old
of that.
days.
Yeah, and so it's always been. I mean, they're going to need it, right? So they're kind of sort of getting out ahead of. We were seeing declining grades, especially in copper and stuff like that. So I think the preferred model, a lot of them said moving forward, is going to be joint venture stuff with junior level or companies that are more exploration focused, right? It'll be interesting to see if that happens. I mean, I was also talking to Morgan Palaquin, who's with Almaden and Almadex, and he was saying, like they're a prospect generator to a degree. I mean, in the Almaden side, they're almost more of a development stage company now. But he was saying on the prospect generation side, there's a lot of companies looking to option and find greenfield stuff now.
Yeah.
He said he's seen a lot more interest in the earlier stage side of it on the junior side, which hopefully means some of the larger cap guys will start funneling money down towards the drill bit as far as more greenfield discoveries are concerned.
Yeah, and the first step for anybody to take is actually to speak with the geological surveys, because these people, like they know everything about the district. You go into them, talk to them, and I'd say something, they're like, actually no, we've done heaps of studies and it's totally proven that the ages just doesn't match up, so it can't be that way. And I'd just be like, holy crap. Well, that's a bit of a game changer, because this is a story that I've been hearing, for example, from heaps of other juniors that talk about their exploration model. So I mean, and it's extraordinary, and they're all extremely friendly people, and they love getting asked questions, and they will blow your mind.
And they spend a lot of time on the ground.
Yeah,
it's on the ground.
But the cool thing is government geos are super passionate about geology, and most of them have a background working in the industry as well, or they work really closely with the industry, passionate about the industry. It's like this perfect marriage of a personality type, and they're in there and they're on our side, and it's just a matter of tapping into their knowledge even more, and just asking them simple questions about, hey, there's this exploration model this company is pitching. Does that actually make sense? Right?
Out of curiosity, you talk to a lot of these across Canada, obviously. Are they relatively small offices? Like, how many geos would work?
I think I don't really know.
You have a couple mates who work up in northern BC, right?
Yeah.
For around Stewart and stuff like that.
Yeah,
right?
Jeff Kaiba, my surfing buddy.
Yeah, and so there's are they small offices responsible for really large areas? Generally?
Kind of really depends. It's really interesting because I go through and you check out the quality of their websites as well.
The government websites.
And quality of their data and how up to date their data is. And it does actually change. And I mean, I really everyone in BC is going to be so angry at me for saying this, but I really enjoyed being on Manitoba's website.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they have a really good website with a lot of information that's really accessible and easy to kind of get into. So I thought that gives them kudos. And I only say that because the Fraser Institute last year at Roundup, everyone was like, Manitoba was rated #1 over BC, and everyone was upset about that.
It's their web portal. So we got to start petitioning the BC government to improve the accessibility.
Well, I've been on the BC one, BCGS, obviously. I haven't started doing the BC Geology article yet. So I haven't really had to like probe too hard into, but I know that the BCGS is spot on too.
It's funny, like how would it compare with like Ontario and Quebec, because they're like probably the largest.
Yeah, they're pretty good too.
Yeah.
It was really easy to find information from there.
Yeah.
And but you know what's hilarious? One thing that I found really difficult to find on the internet. Get this, is like that large scale geology map. You know, that beautiful one that I'm super enamored with, and I cry every single time I look at it because I'm like, all the hard work. To have a map like that, but to also have all the major metal districts popped up on it. Oh. Just that's all I want to see. That's all I want to see in terms of commodity and maybe size.
Like a cross-country one.
Across country one. I want to see the major cratons in Canada as the backdrop to all the metal districts, because I just want to see that big picture. And it's funny that I can't find that. I can't find that. And in fact, you know what I haven't told you about yet is at the end of all this, when it's said and done, I'm going to make a map like that. But you know what I'm going to do? I'm not going to label it. I'm going to make our readers label it.
It's just like interactive.
Totally.
Like, gonna put it up.
And whoever wins, I buy them a drink. I don't know if I can put that on.
That's fine. Yeah, we would buy drinks, so that's all right.
But to have like a little sidebar. Like fill out our metal districts with the geology map.
Crowdsourcing.
There you go.
Yeah, you crowdsource the whole thing.
And then you have to read through all my geology articles, which, by the way, are awesome anyway. So
yeah, you should be reading those.
You should be reading them anyway.
Yeah. And I don't know if this is the week I'm going to have the Christmas music lead in for the podcast. We'll see. It might be next week, so I don't know. I got some royalty-free Christmas music. So
royalty-free.
We can run that, and
I could sing you some. I think we should sing songs.
Oh my gosh, bring in what is it, ukulele?
The ukulele.
Yeah, we could do that. We could do that for sure.
Or bring my little clarinet.
But yeah, it is the season, so we got Christmas parties coming up, the Wazoo coming up here.
I know.
But
so fun.
Yeah, it'll be fun. We have with our office ones tomorrow, and then we have Skeena next week. And
yes.
Yeah, so it's gonna be fun. We'll be everybody will see you out there. We'll be making the rounds, obviously, I guess, for most of the major Christmas events. Say hi to everybody. Try not to consume too much.
And if you have any if you have any great ideas on what we can do with what topics to cover with Geology Corner, then let me know.
We did have somebody tweet us. Yeah.
About we got a shout out from somebody about where does gold come from? Do that in the podcast. I'm like, I'd love to do that one in the podcast.
We can definitely do that.
So we can definitely do it. And then I've got the other next one coming up would be like that our industry is haunted.
Oh, we thought ghost stories. Yeah, we want to do
ghost
that
stories.
One,
it's not. It's kind of geology, but it is geology. So whatever.
Yeah, we can be flexible. It's a fluid entity.
And this one is kind of like, just big shout out to the geo surveys and all the hard work and all the universities and all their hard work and everything that they do really pays off for us. So, yeah.
Perfect. And so this has been the Geology Corner with
the Gratitude Corner. With Lesley Stokes
and Matt Keevil. Kind of asking questions. All right, we'll talk to you guys next week.
Merry Christmas.
Welcome back. It is great to have the Geology Corner in its pure and unadulterated form back in action and raring on all cylinders. And of course, we would like to again extend our gratitude to the Geological Surveys Canada-wide for helping explorers and producers alike uncover and unveil new mineral deposits. And now I would like to leap into what I will be calling, I guess, from the boardroom. As mentioned, I had a chance to sit down with Ian Klassen, President and CEO of GMV Minerals. Now, in 2014, GMV shifted its focus from British Guyana in South America to Arizona when it picked up the Mexican Hat property. Now, this is a pretty, well, let's say it's a historic property in so much as it has been worked before pretty significantly by Placer Dome and some Canadian juniors. But I don't want to steal Ian's fire, so I'll let him get into it. I will note that it does have a resource on the property, 23.4 million tons, grading about 0.7 gram gold per ton for 531,400 contained ounces. And now this is a, as we know, sort of a low sulfidation epithermal gold deposit, and we'll let Ian get into it, and he goes into a little bit of the history of the land package and sort of GMV's approach to the property.
It was Placer Dome USA that originally held the property and did quite a bit of drilling back in the 1989 to 1990 era, and you know, it was one of those examples when you know, advancements were being made in the field. Back then, you know, the boardroom wanted to see quick and ready access to a certain number of ounces, given the price of gold and given what, you know, people want to see as a threshold anyway. And so the field recommended that the company proceed, and the boardroom thought an allocation of their resource money elsewhere was the name of the game. So the property was let go. It's been gone through a number of different fractured ownership structures since then. Most recently, really since we acquired the property, the Mexican Hat proper, in 2014. For 3 or so years prior to that, Oracle Resources, a company based here in Vancouver, had a 100% interest in the property. They raised a substantial amount of money, worked on the property, and then, of course, like so many others, fell into the abyss of a 4-year downturn. And unfortunately, when no money was available for exploration properties, the property went into default, and that's the only good thing that I think came out of 4 years of a downturn, is that we were able to be in the right place at the right time and take the company out of default, and as a result acquired a 100% lease of the Mexican Hat resource that we know of. Okay, so what we did is, shortly after acquiring that in mid 2014, we acquired all the available land around it. So we're the only public company that has had this particular land position in the form and fashion that it is. And the nice thing that comes with having acquired the state land around it, especially to the southeast in this area here, is it encompasses previous operators' drilling. So not only do we have 100% of the original asset, but we believe now, we would argue it's just an extension from the main resource as opposed to a new property. We're able to drill test the workings that Santa Fe Mining did, and hopefully now get some results and add that to our national instrument.
And so the interesting sort of thing with Mexican Hat is GMV originally went into the property thinking they were going to maybe move forward with a PEA and get right into the regulatory process to look at a potential heap leach operation on the property. But what happened was they started doing, as Ian mentioned, some more regional scale exploration, looking at some of the historic data, and they thought, well, there might be more here. So they decided that they would take a closer look at it before moving too far ahead with any sort of scoping studies. So what they did was, actually, it was on December 6th, I think, they released a presser that outlined sort of their Hernandez Hill target, which they located around 500 meters northeast, I believe, of the existing Mexican Hat resource. And so this thing looks pretty interesting because it's got some really interesting soil geochemistry with some good tracer elements, and so they're thinking maybe they should go ahead and just drill this new pretty much greenfield target instead of moving ahead too quickly with the economic assessment. So the next little snippet with Ian is just talking a little bit about well, A, their capital position and raising funds in the last 6 months, and B, about what sort of they're planning to do moving into 2017.
Well, with a resource of 530,000 ounces grading 0.7, we really are probably in a position right now to file a mining plan of operation and get into the regulatory process.
Okay.
But as we've done a little bit more work on the property, well, a lot more work on the property, everything from trenching and drilling and geophysics and geochemistry work, we realize that there's quite a bit of potential not only to expand the resource that we've got currently through this program, but also well into next year with what we're learning.
Okay.
And before we draw that line in the sand and make the filing and then all the supporting documentations and consulting work that has to then ensue over a 18-month to 2-year period, we felt that after especially this long period without shareholder joy, that we at least owe it to our shareholders to see if we can advance upon some of those areas that we think we'll be able to add to the resource. So well, because we're learning more about this as we go, and it's not to say that we're going to work and drill it to the maximum and then make the filing, but I'd rather go forward with more knowledge in the field and more knowledge in the resource base than we have today as we sit here. We took advantage of a pretty good gold market in the late spring and early summer, and so we closed $4.2 million worth of financings over 3 financings. And so we have enough money in the treasury to complete this 14-hole program, do a lot of new geophysics on the property, and certainly to give Dave enough to go and drill that target.
So yeah, if you want to check out a little bit more on GMV Minerals, surf by northernminer.com. I did put out a longer form article on the company, or check out their website for what's coming up news-wise at Mexican Hat. So that's been our show this week, as usual, brought to you by the Yukon Mining Alliance. We would like to thank Lesley for dropping by for the Geology Corner, and Ian Klassen from GMV Minerals for filling us in on what's going on down at the Mexican Hat epithermal gold project in Arizona. So yeah, this has been the Northern Miner Podcast. And I am Matthew Keevil. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you next week.